Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. I'm your host, Deanna DeBolt, and I have a very special guest on the podcast today. My guest is the founder of Curiosetti, a bold approach for leaders who were never meant for conventional molds. With over 25 years in HR and leadership development, Linda has worked with Fortune 100 executives, scrappy startup founders, and trailblazing professionals to ready to lead on their own terms. Through the Curiosetti method, Linda helps leaders blend strategy, intuition, and catalytic action to build lasting, meaningful impact. Whether leading teams, launching ventures, or driving transformation, Linda empowers high performers to challenge assumptions, trust their instincts, and carve their own unmistakable leadership path. Welcome to the podcast, Linda Clark.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be with you.
I'm so excited as well. You and I connected over LinkedIn, and I say that and I always emphasize that with my guests on like where we connected, because I work with a lot of career coaching clients, people who do a lot of networking, as I suggest. So I'm always trying to destigmatize like networking and reaching out to people and connecting. So I'm really glad we got to connect over LinkedIn a while ago, and now you're on the podcast, which is super exciting.
So agree. People go, oh, LinkedIn, and there's pitch slapping, and yes. And there's connections you never talk to. Yes. And then there's conversations like you and I had, and we just hit it off, and you become friends and then colleagues, and then, hey, let's collaborate and building that trust. So it's the only social platform I'm really on. A little bit of Facebook. Instagram is loud to me, so I'm not. So LinkedIn is it. And I agree with you, destigmatizing it. It's not a joke. It's a powerful platform.
Totally. I love that. So before we get into it, something I always like to ask my guests, because I'm a big astrology person, is, I love to kind of understand people's personalities through astrology, and I think it's helpful as well. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with us your big three, your sun, moon, and your rising, and give us a little info on how you think that kind of shows up in your everyday kind of career and leadership style.
Every time I want, there's a rational part of me that's like, astrology is not true. And then I'll just go back and look, and I'm like, I'm a poster child for astrology. So I am a Scorpio, and my mother is very proud of the fact that not only did she deliver me on 10/27, but she delivered me at 10/27.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's very organized. So she's like, she wants you to know 10/27 at 10/27. So, that's my sun. And then I am a Leo moon, because there's not enough right? It gets better. There's not enough stubbornness. So I've got that Scorpio devouring information, and then the Leo, I'm really committed to my way. And then there's a Sagittarius rising.
Oh, love that.
Right. So now that you know me and you hear that combo, I mean, it's a poster child for the brand, for being feral, for teaching people to step outside the box, for the forest metaphors. I'm like, oh yeah, astrology.
100%.
So what are your thoughts when you hear that combo? Because most of the time when people that know astrology, they're like, oh.
It's definitely intense. Like, I personally think that Scorpio is very intense, Leo is very intense. They're both fixed signs. So as you said, like kind of that stubbornness, maybe likes to do things their own way. That Leo and Scorpio together is like very, very intense. And then you have the Sagittarius, which is fire energy along with Leo. It's very much like, I'm a trailblazer. I'm doing things in my own way. I'm expanding. Sagittarius is very much about expansive travel, kind of doing things differently than other people normally would. So that's very interesting. I actually have also Leo and Sagittarius in my big three. Mine's just flipped.
Oh, that makes sense.
So
you're you're Sagittarius moon and Leo rising?
Yes.
Nice.
And then I have an Aries sun, so I have a triple fires.
So you're an intimidating combo too.
I feel like Scorpio, though, is like very intense. Aries can come off kind of childlike sometimes, not in a immature way, but like a fun sort of people-pleasing kind of way sometimes. So I think there is like a difference, but that Scorpio's very intense.
We'll talk about that through the course of this.
Totally.
That's where I work. The Sagittarius, hey, come with me into the woods and learn why the forest reflects your leadership. All of this goes together. And I think it's only been in the last maybe 5-6 years that I'm fully in it, that I have really just shed off the layers of act like this, mask, right? I'm sure we'll talk about the neurodivergency. And so now it's like, oh no, this is me full on.
Totally. Well, we have Scorpio in your 12th house, which is
Mhm.
all about the subconscious and the deep-rooted hidden aspects of you. So coming to that transformation, that makes sense that you've had that experience, but I'm excited to chat about kind of how that is going to show up for you or how that has shown up for
Yeah,
you.
that's super cool. I love that you know that much about it and you can feed in and tell me
Well, I
about me.
consider myself like an intuitive astrologer. I do astrology readings for people. Like if they ask for it, my clients and stuff, I do it for them and I look at their career, things like that. I use it more as a helper rather than like it's going to tell you what your future is. I don't really believe in that. It's more about how can you use your strengths, which I know we'll talk
Mhm.
about, and use it for good. So that's kind of the way that I use astrology kind of in my coaching day to day.
Interesting. I've used some oracle work to help focus, and people go,
Yeah.
tarot? No, no, not tarot. That's different skill set. But, oracle cards are just like, hey, focus. Like right now for months, mine have been about do it when it's uncomfortable, do it when other people don't believe in it, do it when you feel awkward. And I'm like, how about when am I going to get the card that says do it when it's easy?
I know,
I
right?
want that card.
That's not meant for us. That's not.
Correct. It's not.
Speaking of, so you
Yes.
obviously have a very long career in HR and leadership. Were you always interested in HR? Was that something you originally planned on going into?
No. I am an accidental HR person. And a
Hmm.
lot of HR people really are, that
Yeah.
they did not go, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I was doing accounting, and that was horrifying. And I'm not good at it. And no one should ever hire me to do accounting. I'm the person that's like, it's within 20%. Surely that's good enough. And the HR person quit, and I didn't happen to think they were super qualified. And when the boss came to me and he's like, do you think you could do HR? And I'm like, anyone could do it better than that person, right? I was a little arrogant. I'm in my late 20s. So I just got a book. And that's kind of how I've always learned. If I don't know, I'm probably not going to admit to you I don't know. I'm going to go find out, right? High resourcefulness, high initiative. And then I did fall in love with it and spent about 25 years in corporate HR, climbing the ladder. About 10 years in automotive and 10 years in the oil field. So super intense industries. And then went out on my own. It's been right at 10 years. So
It's
there's that
incredible.
that combo. It's been super cool. But yeah, I would be lying if I said I had any real career aspirations. I was doing accounting and goofing off a lot. Didn't really have a
Totally.
career aspiration.
Well, I think a lot of people fall into their careers. I think it's really hard to say, oh, at 18, you need to know what your life career is going to be. I don't think that that's realistic. And for most people, that isn't the case. And I think a lot of times it comes with trial and error. Let me see what works, what doesn't, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And that's how people kind of fall into their careers a lot of times.
Same in what I see with coach. A lot of my coaching work is with mid and senior and executive level leaders, and they're at a transition point.
Mm.
They're either going, hey, what's next for me after I retire? Can I write a book and do this? Do I need to switch companies? Do I want to? So they're always at these transitions. And a lot of them are in their late 30s and 40s. And what they're doing is unlearning all of the shoulds. You should stay at this company. You should want to be a vice president. And when I got to that level, I was like, I don't want to go to any more meetings,
Yeah.
you know? And now we have a labor issue where people say, hey, I'd like for you to be a manager. And they're like, no, thanks, I'm good.
Right.
Because there's all these shoulds. So I don't know what you're seeing in your coaching, but in mine, we're doing a lot of unlearning. And I've honestly come to the phrase unleadership development
Mm.
of here's what you need to take off to get back to who you were. When I say the word feral, and people go, the first time I said that to a lady on LinkedIn, and she goes, do you mean naked in the woods? And I'm like, okay, that was a big jump. I said feral leadership, and you went to naked in the woods. Like it made the book, right? And I'm like, you must have some fantastic weekends. But what I mean by feral is just returning to when you trusted yourself.
Mm. And
You know,
did you find that that was missing when you were in HR and at corporate companies, that that was missing in the leadership?
100%. In mine and you start, I trust the approval. You start, oh, it's not good enough until it's perfect. Oh, we can't possibly talk about this cool draft because it could have mistakes. It could be missing a semicolon. And then you'll think I'm sloppy and unprofessional. And we killed creativity and we killed innovation and we killed decision making. And now here we are in 2025. And guess what everybody's asking for? Innovation, creative problem solving, and decision making. And to get there, I'm having to help peel off from myself and others, right? The perfectionism, the it's got to look this way. And it runs so deep in everything. It's not, oh, I'm a perfectionist at work and I'm fine everywhere else. No, you're not. If I could talk to your best friend and your spouse, like, no, you're not. So, unleadership development, Alice in Wonderland, a very merry unbirthday to you, the other 364 days of the year.
It's really interesting because, I think you and I talked about this last time we chatted, but, I was in leadership in marketing in a corporate company and I was a really young leader. I became a team leader when I was 24 and I
Wow.
mostly worked with other men, and our head of marketing was in his 50s, male, boomer energy, all the things. And I came in and started doing things differently than everyone else. I had a different focus. I managed my team differently. I had a different set of quote unquote rules. I was a lot laxer in certain areas and my team performed way better. We had the highest satisfaction scores of all the employees in the, in the team or in the department. And I was still given shit all the time for doing things differently. So do you feel like this is starting to change in a positive direction, that people are more open to these like different leadership styles now?
I do. I think it makes for interesting conflict. I am so excited about Gen Z coming into leadership. And is it alpha behind them? Them too, because they're not afraid to go, I'm going to lead this way now. And it's not that, people go, oh, they're not humble. It's like, they're smart. So you don't have to wait 30 years for someone else to say, hey, did you know you're smart? They know. And so they're executing. And like you said, you got the results. They just looked different. And so there's a lot of ways that my 57-year-old brain is operating in the 35-year-old space. And it always has. I'm a little resistant to systems that do not work. I'm super resistant to systems that oppress. So, it's why I don't say, feral is not wild. Wild would just be anarchy, right? Like, set it all on fire. It's not that. But if you want all these things, innovation, a great culture, people being comfortable at work, people being engaged, then you have to be expansive, which is what you were doing, making more space and not extractive. Of, let's get blood out of a stone, do more with less. You can't just extract. It leaves a shell behind. And I think that's some of the biggest stuff that you were doing. And it makes people uncomfortable. Now, there's cultures that are expansive and it doesn't surprise them at all. And we're seeing that with people leaving jobs or going out on their own. They're no longer willing. They see the extraction process. And they're like, I'm going to be a shell when this is done. And I'm not willing to do this. And I don't think as coaches, we should keep saying, well, just keep trying. You stay and change things. Go find a culture that supports you and do the thing, right? Go open your own business. Go do anything except support a toxic extractive process. And then they'll change.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is, how do you support a leader when they come to you and they say, I'm so unhappy, but generally I love being a leader, they're working in corporate. Like, what are the first things you say to them or ask them to try to understand what can be done in that situation?
We go back to, I have 4 intentions in my work, and we'll go all the way back there. I'll start with their lived experience. And a lot of people, and I don't know if you went through this when you went to leadership development, no one asked me about my life before that moment. Yeah. They're just like, we will mold you. And it's like, oh, coming from a broken home, I look at things differently. Coming from a family with addiction in it, there's some of our trauma serves our superpowers really well once we get a good therapist. If you're hiring a person of color, and you don't say, what is your experience as a Black person in the world, as a brown person in the world, as a woman in the world, as a queer person, as a neurodivergent person, like none of that affects their decision making. So we go all the way back there. And then the 4 intentions are, what do you choose? How do you want to show up in the world? I don't care about your company right now. How do you want to show up? I want to be, more powerful, more developmental. Okay. The second one is, how do you behave? So for instance, you were behaving in a way that aligned with who you wanted to be. A lot of times in my corporate career, I wasn't behaving in a way that aligned. I was behaving according to the handbook and I was miserable. So, that's the problem for me right there. The third one is, what's your capacity? And capacity is how interested in you are making space for others. Can you send the elevator back down? or is it only about you? And honestly, if the answer is only about me, we're not compatible. I just don't do that work. And then the fourth one is, what do you know? Versus a lot of companies hire on what do you know? Not who do you want to be? How are you acting? Think about how many problems you've seen over the years where someone's like, this is the kind of leader I want to be. Well, then stop yelling at people in the hallways. Yeah. Your behavior is not aligned. So I think that's the first thing we do. Instead of me going, oh, what's your field? Do you have a master's degree? What kind of leader do you want to be?
Yeah. And I don't think it's necessarily dependent on those things either to be a good leader. I remember at my company, whenever we hired someone in management or even someone was promoted internally, they had to do this personality test. It wasn't necessarily like a defining factor, but they did it just to kind of see, how someone would be. And I remember we had someone in our department who ended up being a horrible manager, and he scored very well on the test. I scored extremely bad on the test, and I considered myself a good leader because I think the points that they were looking at of what constitutes a good leader are not the same thing as what actually makes a good leader.
I mean, a lot of them are good managers. I see a lot of those profiles, and I'm like, you're not looking for someone to lead at all. And, I've honestly gotten away from the word leadership lately. And I feel like it's been overused, just like communication. There's big C, actual communication. There's little c, pettiness. And there's big L, leadership, which I think is where we wanted to go, we meant to go. And then there's little L, leadership, which is power and control and command and really thinking through those things. And I think really good leaders can actually do three things. And it's, can you lead? Which is setting vision, looking at the horizon. Great. That's the fun part, right? Can you follow? Which a lot of them cannot. We do a lot of work there. Can you observe? Can you listen? Can you let your team take the lead when they have more knowledge? Can you collaborate when it was someone else's idea and not just yours? And then the third one is you do need to be able to manage. You do. We have to quit acting. I saw a LinkedIn post the other day that was like, once you leave management behind and become the leader you're meant to be, I'm like, well, the lights will go off because you won't be paying your electric bill because that's managing. Yeah. And why aren't we talking more about that combo? Because most of the leadership problems I see are they're stuck in management and they're not leading at all. They're conflict avoidant and they're following everyone around, but they refuse to lead or manage. Or they're leading in a supervisionary way, but no one will follow them because they don't follow anybody and they don't manage their stuff. So people don't trust them.
So really you need a combination of the management and the leadership to be successful.
That's in my world, we use the term guideship. And a guide leads, follows, and manages based on the situation. So if you think about standing on a wobble board in any given moment, like, oh, I need to establish some vision. I'm going to lean on leadership. Oh, I need to shut my mouth and listen to this feedback. Oh, I'm following. Oh, I just need to plan and align and get my calendar act together. I need to do some management and stop acting like any of them are throwaways. They're not.
Well, it makes sense because I think about it, not every day needed to be visionary when I was, a manager. It wasn't about that. Sometimes I just had to do the day-to-day admin, managing my team, dealing with the schedules, dealing with their little issues that they had, whatever the case would be. And it's really about adapting to the situation and being what your team needs in the moment.
And we say that a lot. And then it comes time to adapt and people don't. They just go, oh, well, they should come to me. I have an open door. Why don't they come to me? Because they don't trust you. Yeah. We have to talk about that. It doesn't matter that the door is open. If there's a Doberman in the room, I'm not going through the door. You can leave it open all day long. But if you came out and followed and figured things out, if you came out and followed and managed and listened, you would build enough trust for us to go through that door. And people aren't breaking it down that way. Because we've honored this word of leader. And then you have great leaders that are individual contributors going, I'm not a leader because I don't have a title. And they're an amazing leader. And we're not supporting that either.
And how does a leader or a manager or someone in this position build trust? You mentioned kind of going to the team, speaking with them, listening to them. But what are the ways that you can really build the trust with your team?
Well, this goes back to one of your favorite words. And, inside of this model, we talk about intuition. And I know a lot of people are like, ooh, intuition. Are you going to tell fortunes at work? And I'm like, no. But one of the ways neurodivergency shows up for me is really good pattern recognition. my intuition will go, this is the same problem we had 4 years ago over here, and it will access it. And then people mistake that for instinct. Instinct is something you're born with. It's reactive. There's a bear, I'm running, which you shouldn't run. You should face them and walk backwards, but go ahead. But still, it's instinct. A baby, if you press a baby's palm, they'll close their fingers around your finger. They're not thinking it through. So I don't like instinct because I'm not being reactive. Intuition is strategic. I'm taking everything I learned right up until this meeting today, all of my education, all of my background, this whole magnificent brain, and now I'm listening to you and following you, and I'm paying attention to, are you comfortable? Are you being open? Are you telling me the real truth? And you, coach, nobody tells the truth the first time.
Yeah.
They're like, I want to work on my fitness. No, you don't. What else? And you get down to, oh, your lab work is a mess and you're worried about your health. Or, oh, you're beginning to be less mobile and you're worried you can't go on vacation with your children and that's the actual fear. Let's work on that. Leaders, I'm worried about my team won't pay attention. No, you're worried that they don't trust you and you're not going to get your goals met. So I think intuition is the very first way. Listen to your gut. Pay attention to your perception. If you don't have good perception, then go back and listen to the feedback you've gotten. Some of it might be wrong, but it's unfair to say every bit of feedback I've ever gotten was wrong. When I was dating and someone hated all of their exes, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
The problem is you, right? Not all of your exes were jerks from every day that you're either an idiot for dating all of them or you're not being truthful. So with that, intuition is the first thing. If you have another second here, I'll go into one of my favorites. So Tom Dorrance is the father of natural horsemanship. He's a cowboy that died in the 80s, I believe, but he was born in 1910, and he's the father of meeting horses where they are instead of breaking them, instead of getting on them with spurs and riding them till they're tired. And he said, first you go with them, then they go with you, then you go together. And I have brought that into this conversation of first I go with them, I follow. If I have a new team, a new project, a new coaching client, you don't need to follow me yet. I'm following you. Where are we going? What do you know? What do you want to tell me? When I'm riding, I have a beautiful horse. I get on him. I don't ask for anything. I go with him. And he tells me, hey, I'm sore today. Hey, I'm a little concerned about that rooster over there in the corner. Hey, did you notice there's cows and this looks like it might be work? So he tells me where he's at. And then then they go with you. You've built a tiny bit of trust. You can say, hey, how about we do this now? And the team will follow you. They may not like you yet. They may not trust you implicitly yet, but they're like, okay, you listen. Now we'll listen to you. So you're managing. You've got a little bit of control. You don't have a lot of trust yet. Same with riding. I'll pick the reins up and I'm like, hey, now we're going to turn right. And he's like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Thanks for listening to me. And then there's a point when you're riding where the horse curls their head under and they just relax. And they're like, where would you like to go? And you're off. Now you're going together. Now I can lead the 2,000-pound animal, but I could not have forced him to that. And it's the same with the team. Eventually, I bet your team finally softened into that trust of it doesn't mean they don't fight, but they do trust you're in it for their best interest. And that quote has really stuck with me on my leadership. Did I go with them? Did I try to skip them going with me and downplay it because it wasn't enough? And now they trust, and now we're going together. I think people rush it.
I do love that analogy. That's such like a beautiful way to imagine it in an easy way, I think, to kind of digest what that looks like. Because I do think when, you're in a new role with a new team, it's not about you as a leader coming in and changing everything or telling them what to do. You have to understand first, I always say, even as a leader, each person in your team, you have to treat them uniquely because they have different needs. So you have to go in and understand your team members, the dynamic, how things work, what's not working before you suddenly decide to make a bunch of changes. That usually never works, and it causes a lot of chaos in the team as well. And I love the conversation on intuition. I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with. I know I've struggled with it. We grew up basically the way our systems work, school, everything, and work as well, as to suppress our intuition and to not use our intuition. So do you have any practical tips for people on how they can start really practicing using their intuition, especially when it comes to sort of these leadership roles?
I think the first thing they have to do is address that I'm not asking you to be psychic. You're not looking in a crystal ball. It's not that, because that's how people dismiss it. How did you know the last time that something was going to go wrong? A company that I cared a lot about last year was acquired in June, and people associated with it were shocked. And I went back to February of 2022, where I sent an email going, this looks a lot like a merger and acquisition coming. And I was told, no, you're wrong. That's not it. And it's like, it was totally it. It was a pilot and that was it. And it wasn't that I was psychic. It's that I have done work in mergers and acquisitions. I have done HR work. I know the language. So using my intuition there honestly changed some of my business operations because I could feel it coming. So the first thing is go back to that lived identity of when have you been right? When did you know? When was the last time you sat in that meeting and you were not shocked? Because you have to prove to yourself that it works. Start writing things down. This is what I think is going to happen. And then see, was it actually something bad coming? Are you being hypervigilant and projecting? Because that's for you and your therapist to work on. You can overthink with your intuition, but really coming to accept, I am very good at associative thought. I relate seemingly unrelated things easily when I'm allowed to. I'm really good at forecasting because of my intuition when allowed to. So that's how I think you start working on it. And smaller stuff, just notice, I knew that something wasn't right about this. You know what I knew? I had a couple of friendships split up last year. And at first I was like, and then I went back and there's like 72 red flags that I was like, oh, that's festive. Let me just overlook that.
Yeah.
And I ignored my intuition. And I have done that more than once with things, and it's rarely wrong. It's really rarely wrong once you start listening to it and kind of celebrating it. But you do have to check yourself that it's not trauma. It's not something else talking. You're not projecting. It's just what you know. It's going back to trusting that you do know millions of pieces of data in that magnificent brain that you're accessing and then not trusting.
Totally. And I think something I talk to a lot of my clients about, and also that I've worked on myself, is really regulating my nervous system, going to therapy, because since I've been doing that, I felt like my intuition has been so much stronger, and I've been able, not that it's been stronger, but I've been able to pay attention to it more because I don't have all these other loud noises that are getting in the way, like fear or other negative feelings that I had been feeling. And so now I'm more able to tap into my intuition because I can actually hear what it's saying to me on a daily basis.
I think that's a great clarification, because there are, you can have the voice of a toxic parent and a former boss, and that's not your intuition. There might be lessons there. And I had to, same thing with my therapist, and she has you name it. And so we called her Super B, right? Not going to say that word. And then she had me do like a visual of it. And like it was this creepy swamp tree witch thing, like I'm from Florida, so it looked like an old cypress tree with Spanish moss hanging off of it. But once I learned that, I'm like, oh, that's that talking. That's different. Like intuition and talking to you, 1,000 people that message you and they want you to buy their book and their program. And then there's you like, hey, you want to talk? And trusting the gut of like, oh yeah, let's get on the phone. We should talk, versus no, not you either. And missing an opportunity. Because I do think we shut things down sometimes too.
Totally. Well, all of our preconceived notions or how we're feeling that day or whatever can absolutely, get in the way of that. So that makes sense. In terms of like leadership specifically for women, I work with a lot of women and women of color as well. And I know for them, leadership can be very challenging in corporate spaces that are very male dominated. So obviously, tapping into their intuition, but what is something they can do to help themselves either stand out or feel just more aligned with their own leadership style in a place that may not always love or support what they're doing?
Leaving is an option. Like, I think that's always one of the first things to remind people of, that there is no nobility in trying to convince toxic people to change their ways. Like, I start there. And I think there's a difference between obstruction, which is the willing ability to keep people invisible, the willing ability to undermine them, the willing oppression and racism, versus guardship. And guardship to me is the well-intentioned fences around people. You're not ready yet. Right. You know what? If you would just wait your turn, everything would be all right. And guardship is also dangerous, but not as dangerous as obstruction. And I think if you're exposed to obstruction, looking for ways out is reasonable. Like you, I am super fortunate that women of color have trusted me to coach them on a regular basis. But I think that is us doing the work of Actual allyship is a verb, and unpacking and being willing to. I can coach a Black woman and also still be unpacking structures of systemic racism because I'm a white woman in the United States. And I have to constantly be looking at, whoa, what's going on there in your head? That plantation burning this week and watching what people have been comfortable saying, like, oh, we have so much work left to do. So the first thing I would say is you have to stop shrinking. And I know it hurts, but when you give people the idea that you will shrink, there is never enough. You will shrink until you become invisible and go poof and just disappear. And no one will have ever known you were there. There's not an end to that request once it happens. Be smaller, be quieter, wait your turn. Now there's good feedback, but that's not be smaller, be quieter, wait your turn. So you have to trust that people will ask you to be invisible. And if you don't want that, go back to your 4 intentions. What do I choose? I choose to make a difference in people's lives, even when it makes other people uncomfortable. Okay, great. How do you behave? I am going to start speaking up at meetings. The next time someone says, did you have anything else to add? I'm going to. Okay, what's your capacity for the pushback? Do you have the energy to do that labor? Do you want to do that labor? Is that door open to do the labor? Like, I've had great leaders in my life that were like, hell yes, kick the door down and I've got your hand while you do it. And I've had other leaders sit in their office like, well, may the odds be ever in your favor. But I believe in you. Like, no, that's not the same thing. And then the fourth one is, do you have the knowledge? And I think that that's critical that we start supporting each other. It's much easier for you to start holding it for someone else before you hold it for yourself. If you're not sure how to show up for yourself, if you're not sure how to take up more space, start doing it for other people. And when you start recognizing the value of what they carry in the world, it makes it easier to acknowledge your value that you bring. For too long, I was like, well, you're intense. And well, you're hyper because ADHD. And well, instead of going, you are really amazing at crisis work and last minute stuff and mergers and associative thought and idea generation. You're so good at that. Instead of beating myself up that I couldn't put a black suit on and sit through a 6-hour meeting without wiggling. So I think it really goes back to carry someone else that you want to carry, not carry someone else that's dragging their feet. Carry someone you want to carry. Lift up other voices. Lift up someone different than you. Go find out what it's like to be neurodivergent if you're neurotypical, neurodifficult. I saw in a meme the other day, and I'm loving that so much. If you're straight, find a queer ally, LGBTQIA ally, and start talking to them. If you're a white person, please don't ask Black people to do their labor for you, but go read about it. Go figure out your problematic language. Go figure out how often you do think they're expressing anger when really they were as direct as you were. So a lot of times lifting them up is about do your own work. It's hard to hear.
I know it is because, I think the difference between good and bad leadership, just if we're going to, make it very specific like that, I think the bad part is when you don't try to grow and be a better person or learn about other people. You're just trying to have the power versus if you're a good leader, it's really not about the power. I always used to say that I'm there for my team. I'm there to make their lives better, not them to make my life better. It's about understanding them, what they need, how they work best at the end of the day. Yes, I have my own, set of, tasks that I need to do, but at the end of the day, I'm there to help and support them because if they don't do well, that reflects on everybody. And so I think that's kind of the difference of you really have to look at yourself and what you can do differently, how you react to things. It's almost like an internal therapy you have to do with yourself.
It is. That's why that first choice is how do you choose to be? Because if you choose to be in command and you really like the power and you really like when people listen to you just because you said it, well, you chose that. And all the other aspirations aren't going to work. If you have to be, and people, it's hard for people to go, hey, that was, for a man to say, I've got some misogynistic feelings. I believe women should do this. Okay, unpack it. It's really hard as a white person to go, these are systems that open doors for me that didn't open doors for someone else. And how do I help hold those doors open now? And how do I make sure I don't step in it? I have an amazing woman that I had the opportunity to mentor for a few years, a Black woman in HR. And we were on the phone one day And my little ascended self went, oh, I understand exactly what you mean. And I had to go, okay, time out. There was a little pregnant pause, and blessedly she didn't shred me. And I'm like, okay, wait. I understand what your experience as a woman might be, but I do not have any concept of what your experience as a Black woman moving through this industry could be. And I am sorry. And please tell me more. And she said, thank you for reconnecting, which was such a valuable lesson. She didn't forgive me. She didn't go, it's okay. It's not okay. It was a moment of my language being out of my lane. But I love that she acknowledged, like, poof, came back together. So it was a really valuable, it's better to do that than wander off going, oh God, I can't believe I said that. Or not even know that you said it is the worst. And when someone brings it up, you cry. And it's like, that's pointless.
Absolutely. And I think, for a lot of women and women of color, we're still sort of, and you mentioned this, is, we're still trying to shrink. And that really resonated because I think that's a lot of what women are feeling, and they feel like they have to shrink, especially in these male dominated fields, especially with all the rhetoric happening nowadays, although I think it is helping us kind of hopefully be louder and say that we shouldn't have to shrink and we shouldn't have to give in to patriarchal societal guidelines that have been set up for us. So in terms of helping women unlearn these things, what are some beliefs that you're finding that you see in a lot of women that they have that you're sort of helping them unlearn, especially kind of in this season of our society and sort of what's going on?
It's the perfectionism. And how we talk about it is through the lens of, I'm a child of school teachers, so I think about everything in grades. And I had this amazing student. I'm an undergrad professor when I have time. And she had like a, I don't know, 99 average, whatever it is. She's perfect. And every extracurricular and beautiful, and just like her whole life, like bam, like everything you imagine. And she missed my class one day. And I'm that professor. I mean, I like 5-7 absences a semester. I'm fine. I want you to have a college experience. Missed class. Comes in sobbing. I don't mean like, I mean snotty. I'm so sorry. I don't want you to think less of me. And I'm like, for what? Like, I thought she cheated or something. And she goes, I missed your class. I slept through it. And I hugged her. I'm like, I am so proud of you for being human. I am so proud of you for using the attendance policy. I'm so proud of you. She needed that from a woman she respected way more than she needed me to go, when you get out in the real world, now no one's going to put up with that. Yes, they are. They have PTO policies. You'll call in sick every now and then. You'll have vacation. It's this ridiculous standard we're holding people to that if you have a 99, you need to ask for extra credit. So now what happens is everything's a priority because everything has to be 100. You've got to be 100 mom and 100 coach and 100 spouse and 100 employee at every skill known to man, even if it's not yours, just in case someone asks. All of this is unsustainable.
Yeah.
So we start going, all right, the smallest task on your task list, what does it actually need to be to get done? 74. Just get it done. Just call the dentist. That's it. You don't have to plan for it. Nothing. Just call the dentist. 74. How do you want to go through life? 100. Okay, that's not sustainable. And by the way, a 90 is still an A.
Yeah.
Oh. And then I tell them, like, my number this year is an 87. And they're horrified at first. They're like, did you just say that you're mediocre? No, 87 exceeds expectations regularly. Look at what your brain did with that. And it means across the board. So do I have things that need to be 100? I do. Do I have things that I don't even need to do at all? I could take a 0. Yes. Do I have things that could be a 53? Yes. Order pizza and be done with it. Those of you with a 1-year-old that are like, I need t-shirts and you do not. You need a birthday cake on a trash bag in the driveway. That kid smashing their face. Everyone's happy. So these sustainable practices, the first thing we start with, and I've had people that are like, okay, I can be a 96. That's where they'll start. And even that 4% of space. And then when they, they're like, I got a 96. I'm like, okay, well, what was it? An example I give them is I spoke once and there were 135 attendees. About 95 did the little sheet afterwards. 94 of them happy, right? Like, oh, this was so good, so engaging, thank you. And then one says, serious HR is not stand-up comedy.
Oh my gosh.
Period, right? And I thought about that for 2 days. First of all, if you've been in HR more than 12 seconds, it is nothing but stand-up comedy, day after day after day, with some really tragic other things. But wow, what a lack of sense of humor. But that's what I thought about. I didn't think about the 94 happy people. I didn't think about the emails that said people were happy. I didn't think about the work that I booked from the event. I thought about serious HRs. I mean, I was like, do I need to change my brand? I should dye my hair brown. I should wear a black suit. I should act like an adult. I beat myself up. And I think that's what we work with. I finally had to go, you got there mad, and then you were mad about the little overcooked chicken breast and the cold mashed potatoes, and then you were mad about me, and you're probably still mad. Stay mad, die mad. But I had to get there. And I think that's been one of the best examples. And I tell them that story.
It's a great example. And I'm just laughing too at the student you had who missed one day. I missed one class my entire 4 years at college. And it was only because my best friend had like a medical emergency and needed me. And so I can relate to the insane perfectionism that I also had. I always say I'm a recovering perfectionist because it was what I had, and a lot of my clients suffer from perfectionism, and I tell them, like, let's just remove the word perfect out of your vocabulary. There's no such thing. So I love this analogy of like, okay, what's the percentage I can give? Because I think too, in like I have different seasons of life, and in winter time, this winter I just was low energy. I was going through health things. I couldn't give 100%. I was probably at like 60% maybe.
Yeah.
I was frustrated with myself because I was like, why can't I give more? And now looking back, I realized that that's what I had to give, and that was my best, and that's the end of it. There's no reason that I should be negative towards myself. So I think that really relates to, women as well, especially in the workplace. It's like, first of all, as a leader, you don't need to be good at everything. I think that's a myth too. That's why you have a team.
It's a waste of time.
Exactly. I worked in marketing. I had creative people under me. I was a copywriter originally and then became a leader. So yes, in copywriting, I was very competent, but I wasn't a graphic designer. I wasn't a multimedia designer. I wasn't a front-end developer. I had all those people in my team. Now, I needed to know the general flow of the work, but it wasn't my job to be able to code or put, a design together. That was not my job. And so it's about, okay, what am I good at? I'm good at managing their emotions, managing the workflow of the project, talking to the stakeholders, and really focusing on what it is you're good at. And I think this relates to the bigger conversation too of like women giving everything in every aspect of their life. The age-old question is, can women have it all? I think you can have it all. You just don't need to do it all. It's about what you can do, what you can't do, and then sort of delegating the rest of it. Like you said, ordering the pizza, having someone clean your house, having help, like whatever that looks like.
And having it all is your definition.
Yeah.
I do have it all. I have everything I want in my life right now. But it doesn't look like the corporate definition of having it all. It doesn't look like a big house and a Mercedes in the driveway, but that's not my having it all. It could be someone else's having it all. And I think when you realize that control of you do have a choice and you don't have to get in the box and you can do less. And sometimes, like you getting through the winter with a 60. You got through the winter. Thank you for still being here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you never know what people are going through. And I go back to my undergrad, and my biology professor did not have an attendance policy. And you got one grade, the final. So when you tell me on day one, you either have no homework, there's no nothing, just come take the final. I didn't go to class the rest of the semester. And then walked in and got an A. Then organic chemistry, I worked on harder than I have ever worked on anything in my life. It made no sense. I had tutors. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I got a C, and then I changed my major. But I was prouder of the C that I worked for than the A that I whatever.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that as well, that there's a noble C that you did give your best to, gave it everything I had. And there's A's that's my superpower over there. I didn't even have to turn on the juice to get the A. Totally. So why aren't we given more credit for that C? Those days when you're a D mom or an F, you're just like, well, you got that kid every day, 365 for years. Like, it's okay to make a mistake.
Right.
Hit it tomorrow. It'll be all right.
Absolutely. I think this goes beautifully into the topic of like neurodivergence, which I know we've already touched on, but I definitely is something I want to chat about because I have a lot of neurodivergent clients. So just if you're open to sharing kind of what neurodivergence looks like for you in your everyday life and sort of how that shows up.
Well, I'm open. Like, I don't have any filters. That's the first way it shows up, right? A lot of the intensity over the years and the talking tos of, do you think you could be less direct? I wish I had had a diagnosis to just go, no.
Yeah.
So, like many people of my age, we were told we were gifted. And I am. I'm gifted at some things, and I'm tragically, at a loss at other things, but gifted. Got put up grades, socially awkward, all those things. And then in my 40s, I was with my doctor one day, and she's like, you're autistic, right? And I'm like, no, really? She's like, yeah, you should go read about that. And then we talked about it afterwards and knowing. And I identify, I know some people don't like the labeling. Some people will say Linda has autism. And I'm like, no, Linda doesn't have anything. I'm an autistic human. And then the further add on was ADHD later on. So when I look at all of my superpowers, I am the person you want on your team when things change the night before. When someone goes, oh, the boss hates that PowerPoint. Oh, we have to. I'm like, yeah, this is the best thing ever. I'm not the person you want on your team when you say, this is a 5-year project and we're going to come together once a week in a 2-hour planning meeting. I'm going to be like, why do you hate me? I cannot think about anything for 5 years. I can't think about anything for 2 hours. So how it shows up for me now is, as a solopreneur, I don't have to beg people to accommodate me. I own the business. Now, can I get in my own way? Percent. The ADHD, I have to be very regulated with my tools. Like, I use a Remarkable. I could not live without it. It's sitting right there because I don't remember it if I don't write it down. But if I write it on paper, no. But if you write it in here, it's always with you. It's on my phone. So I can go, okay, I know those meeting notes are in here somewhere. That has been a lifesaver for me. But it's also shown up in just stopping beating myself up of, now my friends will go like, hey, what's your fixation food right now? Right now it's Honey Nut Cheerios. It was Cheetos this winter for a couple of months where I had to have Cheetos a little bit every day. It's never kale. Like, could it please have a fixation food that's healthy? Microfiber sheets, right? Can't touch them. Get to a hotel room with microfiber? No. So I travel with some cotton sheets in my suitcase. So it shows up that way. I now have a group of friends that get it. But, there's a lot of brilliance as well. We've got here a cabinet member saying autistic people will never have jobs. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm working a lot for not having a job. And there, it's a spectrum. I've had people come up after a speaking event and say, I didn't know y'all could talk. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't speak for the body of neurodivergent people. Yeah. And you just watched me talk and you said that in your outside voice. So let's talk about you. But that's how it shows up for me. It now fuels my entire business. And as I've done, the books, I have a book coming out in August. And as I've had friends read pieces of it, a lot of your friends tend to be neurodivergent if you're neurodivergent. And they're all like, this book is what I've been waiting for. And I'm having to remember there are people that won't relate to it at all. When I talk about feral, they're going to be like, Naked in the Woods, right? They're going to go there. But there's a whole body of people that have been waiting for me, that have been waiting for the Mel Robbinses saying, let them, that have been waiting for, people to speak up about oppression. So I have to remember, I'm not here to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
A former boss would say, if everyone's happy with you, you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
So I have to go back to that. Someone's going to say it sucks and someone's going to say it changed their life. And I just got to read the right ones.
Exactly. I mean, I really love that you said that. And I think there's so many pieces there that a lot of people that I know and clients I have struggle with, being diagnosed later in life, feeling like people are telling them they're different or having these misconceptions about what what neurodivergence looks like. Again, as you mentioned, it doesn't help that certain public figures are talking about it in a very specific way. So what would you suggest for people in the workplace? I have a lot of women that I work with, and what they come to me and tell me is, oh, I don't know if I should talk about being neurodivergent. How am I going to, be in this role? Am I going to be a good fit? They're really worried, especially going into interviews. So what kind of advice or support would you give them to sort of empower them in their neurodivergence?
It's hard because I know what it's like to try and fit inside the box of, I worked at a company and the dress code was long sleeve suits, and I hate long sleeves. If you make me wear long sleeves, that's all I think about all day long is how soon I can get that thing off of me. So I hid it for years and suffered with it. And the thing is, when you don't talk about it and you mask and you contain it, you also contain all of the superpowers.
Yeah.
You can't have my associative thought. You can't have my strategic forecasting. You can't have my ability to pivot when I'm sitting there dying because I'm wearing long sleeves and can't wait to get out of your meeting. So the first thing is the companies of where's your bias around neurodivergency? Right now it's everyone's suddenly autistic. Well, yes, because we're diagnosing it.
Yeah.
It's not that it's, in the food or whatever. It's that we have language for it. We're also driving cars these days instead of riding our horses. Things change. So I would tell them, if you feel like you have to mask, is it your perfectionism or is it someone else asking you to do it? Because if they're not asking you to do it, you're doing it to yourself. And how can you start letting it out? Are you comfortable? What's your bias about it? Do you believe that you're dumb? Do you believe you're less than? I'll give you an example. I'm a kayaker and I don't roll my boat well. And this is like my 4th, 5th year kayaking, and my roll is sketchy at best. And lately I finally put the pieces together because what I didn't understand was the actual physics. People would just go, you just move your paddle and sit up and everything will be fine. And I'm like, no, that's not how my brain works. For 2 years, I thought I spun around in the boat when I went upside down because part of neurodivergency for me is dyspraxia. I struggle with motor movement. And I've just recently found a coach that's willing to go, no, you're going to rotate your wrists 15 degrees. You're going to sweep out 45 degrees. And suddenly, guess who can roll? So it's about getting the information that you need and letting yourself be unfiltered. Use the language that you want to use. If it's neurodivergent, if it's neurospicy, I don't love that one, but some people really do. I'm super proud. I just say autistic. And then I'm happy to provide clarification. And if they want to say dumb things like, isn't everyone a little bit autistic? No, Karen, they're not. That's like people that go, I don't see color. Yes, you do. And you should talk more about it. So I think that they have to be a little more comfortable in themselves, that you're an original. That really matters to me. Stop worrying about not being enough and start going, no one will ever see your combination again, right? No one has ever seen your combination of education and thought and how you put things together. No one has ever seen mine. So I can either be sad that I'm not like her, not like him, or I can be like, hey, when this is gone, this is a one-shot deal.
Yeah.
So I think that's some of it. But also investigate the culture. You'll know it. Ask them. How do you support neurodivergent people in your population? How do you think about DEI? Well, we think DEI is stupid and pointless. Okay, well, if they can't start there, 3 letters are the kindergarten of the conversation. If you can't handle just DEI without having a meltdown, you really can't talk about belonging and inclusion and environments of thriving and ecosystemic leadership. And you'll know right there on the spot.
Yeah. I think that's really great advice. And, just as we're kind of wrapping up, I'd love to, we've talked about so many good topics today, but what's something that you really want to leave behind as sort of your legacy for all the leadership work that you're doing?
Oh, my purpose is short and skinny. It's people are better for having crossed paths with me.
I love
and
that.
Sometimes that's noble for like, oh, I've created this method and oh, I coach. And sometimes it's I can't flip you off at a red light because you cut me off. I can't yell at you in traffic. I can't be impatient with you at the store. Does it mean I succeed? No, right? Yeah. Sometimes I just step right in it. But the legacy is people are better off for having crossed paths with. I don't want anyone to stand at a funeral going, she could answer email like no one's business.
Yeah.
She did a good interview, that I cared. And care is a really important word to me these days. Care is about, do I have the capacity for expansion for others? It's bigger than nice. It's bigger than kind. It's bigger than popular or sweet. If I can put my head on the pillow at night and I know I cared, even if you didn't like it, even if you thought it was wrong, even if you're mad at me for saying it, I'm still going to sleep. If I put my head on the pillow at night and I'm worried about, was I nice? Did you like me? That's a recipe for insomnia.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned your book, so I'd love for you to tell us about it or what you can share about the book, what it's going to be about, all the details.
Super excited about it. It really, like many people, it's been in process for a number of years because you want to say something, but you're not entirely sure how to say it. And then last year, much like you, I had a really quieter, darker year, like wintertime, and it gave me a lot of time to think and really go, all right, how do these things come together? Like I mentioned intuition earlier, it's in there. All the words start with I. And here's the shady inside reason. The saying there's no I in teams irritates me like no one's business because there are individuals. And you mentioned it a while ago. So every word starts with an I. That's my point. Inquisitive, intuition, independence. I'm like, there is an I in teams. There's 7 of them as a matter of fact. But it's called Feral Guideship. And it's for those, there's a little subtitle that's long, but it's basically for those who are too loud, too direct, and should sit down more often, and said absolutely not. And it's about the method I've been talking about today. The Tom Dorrance quote is in there, but it's really creating ecosystemic leadership. Is a marvelous model that people write about. And what it is in the forest, the trees are not bashing the mycelia. The mycelia is not talking about the trees get too much. Everyone grows and thrives. And if anyone gets poisoned and dies, other also get poisoned and die. So they're all related. And going back to some ancient kind of ways of reciprocity with each other. So it's about that, and it's a model for how to people. There's workbooks in every or worksheets in every chapter to help you individually or to help you with a team. So I'm super stoked about it at this point. Imposter syndrome has not kicked in too much.
That's good.
I'm like, oh, I wonder if it'll be like it. Probably not. It won't be. But it's a labor of love, and it's a way for people like me to see leadership books that help them move forward as well. That don't feel like, oh, if you just behave and wear the right outfit and, dress for the job you want. Okay.
Right.
I'll do. A lot of the questions you asked today are in it.
I love that. Well, I'm super excited for the book. I'm definitely going to check it out when it's ready. I'm sure you'll post about it.
August 11th.
August 11th. That's a good, 11's my favorite number. So there we go.
Oh, I love that. I'm all about a good prime number. So that, that's a fixation for me too. So,
well, you have like a numbers thing with your, birthday and birth time. That's crazy too. So it makes sense. I love
it. Makes sense.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I'm super excited. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. This was such a good conversation. I'd love for you to tell everyone where they can find you, where they can follow you, your website, all of the things.
So a couple of easy ways. LinkedIn, reach out and connect, and do send a direct message. Do say hello. Do tell me what's going on with you. A second really easy way to connect is to grab your phone and text the word feral, Feral, to 66866, and hi, you're on my email list. It'll ask you for your email, and that's where you'll be notified. We do a once a month free webinar. There'll be advanced readings of the book there as well. And I'm trying to think of a third way, and there's really not. It's LinkedIn, and that for the most part are the best ways to reach me. Website, Curiosetti.com. And it's spelled differently. It's interesting, Curiosetti. And I found out that's the Italian spelling. But just so you know, it's a blend of curiosity and confetti, so that curiosity is everywhere.
I love that. We will put it in the show notes so everyone will be able to get to it easily. But I love
Thanks
that.
so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I love talking to you, Linda. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Same.
And to everyone else, hope you have an amazing week, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.